What is going on, Lucid fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to give you a good overview of what to expect from Lucid going into next week and some things that might be influencing the price. Outside of that, I want to talk on a very brilliant idea that's really incorporating Lucid into its business plan. So I'm going to be talking about what that is as well. Before I get into any of that, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And with that, let's get right to it. So hopefully everyone's having an amazing weekend thus far. I want to start off by talking about that brilliant idea. So as you can see right here, Menlo Park's Rosewood Sand Hill Hotel offers EV amenity in new partnership with Lucid Air. So if you do go on to Rosewood's website, and on a side note, this is listed on Expedia. So as far as its reach to customers, it's pretty vast and out there. So definitely very positive. But as far as experiences, you do see Lucid Air test drive. So once again, definitely putting Lucid at the forefront of definitely expanding, and its performance, its technology is definitely bar none. So this is why even Rosewood is really just having it out there for a lot of individuals to potentially even test drive, which of course is absolutely amazing. So in general, I think this is a very good thing behind the scenes, and whether Lucid did initially try to do this or if this is on Rosewood, regardless, it's definitely a very brilliant idea, and hopefully this should expand to other hotels, because I think this is a very good kind of a amenity as what it does say. But in general, I absolutely love this idea, and as far as the overall costs associated to it from Lucid standpoint, it is virtually nothing. So in general, I think this is a very positive thing. But like I said, when it comes down to next week, I'm going to give you a good overview of potentially things that might be influencing the price and what the data points is all saying. So coming from an economic data standpoint, it's basically a pretty boring week. So it's mostly going to follow the technical. So when I do technical analysis, that's going to play a big part in it. Outside of that, on Thursday. So Thursday is basically the only big day that is having economic data, and that is because of CPI. So of course, CPI is very speculative at this stage. If it is negative, then yes, unfortunately, that's going to cause a little bit more of a ripple effect across the broader economy, because people see CPI as very much linked to inflation. Of course, there's a big aspect to CPI that's negative, and that is the energy component, but I don't want to get into that right now. The month over month, as you can see, the forecast is 0.3, previously was 0.2, so the expectations are that CPI is in fact going to go up. And the core CPI, the year over year, is 5.7 versus 6. So once again, it's a little bit more mixed on that regard. So that's definitely going to be very positive or negative depending on how this does play out for the broader economy. And this is coming out on January the 12th, Thursday. So most likely that is going to be the only external factor that's going to be influencing the price of Lucid. I did do a video yesterday talking on ultimately when Lucid might be actually coming out with their Q4 numbers, production and delivery. Most likely it's going to be around the 3-week target range, so last week of January most likely. So not really going to influence the price going into next week. As far as the data, so looking at as far as the options activity, it's been mixed, and I think that's been a very common trend over the last little bit. No real outliers, no real big buying behind the scenes, and that can also be said exactly for this as well. So this is all the secondary market transactions. There was one big one that did stand out, so 7.57 million, and for that to be done on the secondary market is very positive, because keep in mind, secondary market is what you and I trade on, typical retail investors. So having fairly large transactions on there is pretty abnormal. But in general, though, I think the buying or big buying on the secondary market has kind of taken a step back, in addition to the dark pool. So these are all the transactions on the dark pool. Very, very small. There was two big ones, as you can see, 1.69 million and 1.85 million. But once again, I think it's for the most part, just institutions are taking a step back with Lucid. And you can even tell that as well based on Fintel. So right now, institutions or ETFs that have disclosed their positions have already dropped the overall institutional shares from 72 down to 65.69%. So clearly, institutions have dropped a lot of their positions in Lucid. And as of right now, a lot of the big players and institutions haven't really disclosed their positions yet. Most likely that's going to be coming around the last week of January, first week of February. So once again, that is what is behind the scenes with data points. I'll give you a quick update on what is happening with shorts, because surprisingly enough, a lot of other growth stocks have had their shorts closing out the positions over the following couple of weeks, but not in Lucid's case. Short score is 86, so that actually did surprisingly go up from 85. Higher the number, the higher the likelihood of a squeeze happening. Utilization is 100%. Shares on loan is 237.97 million. And as of right now, there's $1.03 billion worth of shorts out there. So definitely behind the scenes, it's very, very interesting. And cost to borrow is surprisingly starting to go up. So that could be something as far as to monitor or continue to monitor, because that could lead into a very good squeeze potentially. Again, as I've mentioned in the past, you need a very good catalyst or a surprise catalyst for that to happen. But regardless, on Friday, 722.01 thousand shares were increased or borrowed from shorts. Grand total is 165.42 million shares being shorted. And right now, the short interest is 25.57% of the free float. That in and among itself is just very much effed up. Very, very messed up. And I think in general, Lucid does have a lot of good upside potential, and very much interesting to see that institutions currently hold roughly about 65.69% of Lucid, but behind the scenes, it's very much being shorted. So very much conflicting information there. So that's a good summary of this. Keep in mind though, on paper, it has everything to squeeze. It needs that X catalyst though. So I'm not here to say it's going to squeeze or it's not. I just like to give you guys a good benchmark and position, because these are the individuals that are clearly betting against Lucid. So once again, they are doubling down on Friday, but yet cost to borrow is going up. And normally cost to borrow and short interest are for the most part inverse. So the fact that cost to borrow is going up, as is short interest, is a little bit more bearish. But like I said, leading into next week, the economic data for the most part is pretty boring up until Thursday. So it's just going to follow technical analysis. And so on the actual chart, I have the 50, 100, 200-day moving averages, Bollinger Band, RSI, stochastic, and momentum. Despite everything, number of retail investors have clearly liked the discount. So it's been going up. So once again, that's a very positive sign. Stochastic is still very, very oversold at 12. So I think behind the scenes, it's been suppressed very much so, a lot of selling pressure because of a lot of these institutions that have been selling. So once again, I already did bring this up roughly about, I think, a month ago, when there was a very substantial sell on the secondary market and also the dark pool, and most likely it was BlackRock reducing some of their position, because keep in mind there's a lot of different external factors that's at play as of right now, but BlackRock behind the scenes is still very much negative. And even technically as well, the latest news on BlackRock wasn't necessarily good. And as you can see right here, BlackRock halts withdrawals from 4.2 billion UK property fund. Technically, that's not really influencing Lucid, but it goes to show behind the scenes with BlackRock, they are experiencing a lot of difficulties. So that might be one reason among others that they did reduce their position in Lucid. But again, that's behind the scenes. On the actual chart though, it is holding fairly good support around the $6 range. So in general, that could be seen as a very good potential bottom, maybe depending on the data that does come out. Of course, CPI is very much linked to inflation. If this does in fact go up or well above the forecast, anticipate a lot of downward selling pressure for Lucid and other growth stocks. So that's something you need to factor in. I'm going to do a lot more in-depth videos on Lucid's financials once they do submit their Q4 earnings and their 2022 annual as well. So stay tuned for that. As I always do, I like to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly, no different than this video. But regardless though, we are technically lower percentile of the Bollinger Band. So overall, it's just following just psychological kind of support and resistance points. So $6 is for the most part the support. $7 as of right now is that very strong resistance. So that's something you need to factor in. It might just be range bound and trading between that range until there's a good piece of news to break it out, or vice versa. So that is basically what is driving Lucid. Give yourself a shout out in the comments below if you have been buying during this time frame, because it's been a very scary time, but I think in general there's going to be a lot of good upside potential. My average right now, I did get it down a little bit, but I'm still $8.50 range. So So I think in general, I might be averaging down if it does break with that $6 mark. But keep in mind, I did do a video. If Lucid does get very close to that $5 or does break that $5, that in among itself is a very scary potential. And you might see Lucid starting to talk on reverse stock split. So a lot of different moving parts when it comes down to Lucid. But as I always say, think long term. That's a little bit better in the bigger picture. So don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. Once again, hopefully everyone's having an amazing weekend thus far. But if you do like my channel and support the growth, take a look at my memberships, link in the description below, or just hit the join button at the bottom of the screen. And with that said, I appreciate you guys all tuning in. On a side note, let me know in the comments below if you would like more live streams, Lucid dedicated live streams. I've really been starting to do a little bit more Mullen ones, so I'm going to be doing some of those. When it comes down to the Lucid participation, it didn't really seem like people wanted live streams anymore. So if you guys do want Lucid live streams, let me know in the comments below. I will definitely add that to the mix. But once again, I appreciate you guys watching, and let's all make a lot of money on Lucid.